There really isn't a nice way to say this, so I'm just gonna say it. About 90% of all the talk and hype around the BRICS currency is some real bull. Yep, I said it, but give me a few moments and I'm gonna explain to you why I say this. What's good, Stackers University? Somehow I survived my crazy July, which had a number of incredible, wonderful things happen to me in my life, but we'll have to save that for another video. I received a number of questions and requests about the BRICS situation and well as central bank buying, and it's really a topic I haven't touched on for a variety of reasons, but primarily because I don't like to waste my time on rumors, conjecture, and trendy topics that really don't mean much. And I've shared this before, but one of the worst things you can do in your life is confuse activity with accomplishment. Too often we make the mistake of thinking that because we're busy all day, that means we got a lot of things done or got something accomplished. And when in reality, we can actually be like a car stuck in the mud. Our engine is roaring, our wheels are turning, but we're not going anywhere fast. And that's kind of how I feel about the whole BRICS situation. Ever since the US weaponized our currency using the SWIFT payment system and confiscated a couple $100 billion Russian dollars, this conversation about the BRICS and the BRICS currency has only gotten louder and louder. The claims have become more extreme, and the truth has even become even more perverted. But let's remember that this all started in response to the US sanctions. And Russia then started buying gold at a price pegged to the ruble. And Lord have mercy, YouTube creators lost their mind talking about Russia is backing its currency by gold, which could not have been any further from the truth. And I did a video debunking the hysteria that the hypers and pumpers were pushing. And I actually want you to go back and think about last March and what was going on at that time. Gold had run up to around $2,000 in March. And what happened after that? The absolute bottom fell out of the market and gold dropped below $1,700. And it actually gave us an incredible buying opportunity. But what did the hypers tell us during that time? Oh, come on, you can remember those videos, right? It was about get your gold and silver now while you can and get it before it becomes unobtainium and all this nonsense. And then as prices fell, they kept telling us, buy it now before you run out of time. We have to train ourselves to not listen to the hypers and the pumpers and start to really ask ourselves, what is this person's motivation? What is their bias? The reality is that these topics get lots of hype because they get views, and the fear mongering is a great way to get people to buy gold and silver. And that's kind of what we have going on here. So fast forward to now, and the fear mongers and the hypers have found their new weapon of mass misinformation. And like Paul Revere, they're running around telling everyone, the BRICS are coming, the BRICS are coming. Except the BRICS have always been here, and they have slowly grown as a collective to the point that now they are demanding a seat at the table. They've essentially said, hey G7, we're tired of sitting at the kids' table. Our collective GDP now equals yours, and we're sick of giving away our natural resources and getting little in exchange. Frankly, they're right. For decades, the West and our G7 allies have exploited these countries, and they're sick of it. And this is a kind of a great place to start our BRICS conversation, because this Nixon era attitude of it's our currency, but it's your problem is no longer tenable or accepted by these developing countries. And so as the saying goes, believe none of what you hear and some of what you see. And that just might be the best way to explain this whole BRICS currency. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do my best to present you with data and facts that kind of counter some of the most common narratives being pushed about this big, scary BRICS currency and let you decide for yourself whether or not it's some BS. And so let's start with the BRICS currency will challenge or replace the dollar immediately. Let me start out by saying that I find this to be one of the most absurd rationales out there for a variety of reasons. But most importantly, do you know how long it takes to actually implement a legitimate new currency? It took the EU over 10 years to implement the euro. And that was with countries that were largely friendly with each other and they all wanted to make it happen. And so ask yourself, who exactly is going to issue this currency? China? Russia? Do you trust any of those countries to be in control of your currency? China with its currency controls or Russia with its oligarchs and corruption? Come on, that doesn't even make any sense. The second point is that this BRICS currency, it will be backed by gold, or maybe it's going to be pegged to gold, or maybe it's going to be backed by gold and some other commodities, or backed by gold to a certain percentage, or maybe there isn't even going to be a currency at all, because according to South Africa's ambassador to the BRICS, he said, quote, there's never been talks of a BRICS currency. It's not on the agenda. What we have said and we continue to deepen is trading in local currencies and settlement in our local currency. I need the BRICS to figure out what they're going to do because I'm confused now. Either it's going to be a currency or it's not going to be a currency. And in fact, reports show that there is not enough gold in the world to even have a gold-backed currency. So I'm not sure where people were getting that idea. And then there's the third point about how it's really about trading in local currencies. And how's that actually working out? Well, recently Russia reported that they had too many rupees that they couldn't use. So let me get this. What's the point of a currency that you can't use? So what did Russia do? They suspended trade in rupees. So let me see if I got this right. The BRICS is not really a currency connected to gold. In fact, it's not a currency at all. Instead, it's about settling trade in local currencies, which worked out so well for Russia, sarcasm added, that they suspended settlement because they had over $1 billion in rupees that they couldn't use. I'm no genius, but this doesn't seem to be starting off very well. Someone let me know when they figure it out. As you can already see, there's a tremendous amount of speculation and conjecture around this without much to show for it. All right, let's get to point number 4, central banks buying gold at record levels. Now, this is very much a fact, but we also have to consider why central banks buy gold. And what you see is their reasons aren't all that different from why we buy gold. A hedge against inflation, diversifying their portfolios, a response to instability, and to balance out their foreign exchange reserves. Additionally, central banks will make purchases to maintain confidence in their currency and support local mining. Shout out to Jeffrey Christian and the CPM group for this chart of gold as a monetary reserve, which shows that even with all the central bank buying, you can see how small of a percentage that gold really represents in relation to monetary reserve assets. It kind of looks like what our allocations of metal should be, right around 20%. The next point is, while there's been all this buying, as this chart shows, we also have to remember that central banks have also been selling, as shown in this chart. But how often do you hear about the central banks selling? Did you know in a recent survey by the World Gold Council that 25%, only 25%, plan to add more gold in the next 12 months? Meaning 75% will not be adding. Also, did you know that central banks only hold 1/5 of all gold ever mined, which means gold is either in the hands of the people or has been used in industry? So let's also not forget the potential impact of Basel III on central banks holding gold. Take a look at this article that really speaks to this issue. So maybe, just maybe, central bank buying isn't solely about countries preparing for the BRICS currency or about de-dollarization. Speaking of which, number 5, while de-dollarization is 100% real, it's not like you can unwind the dollar overnight. And frankly, as many people have suggested recently, it's not like it's anything that's going to happen in our lifetime because the US dollar is too prevalent. As we learned from Russia, what's the point of having $1 billion in rupees if you can't spend them? And the reality is this: gold and silver are two of the few payments that are accepted everywhere in the world. Doesn't matter. So with all that said, let's be clear. It is true that worldwide, the attitude around gold and silver have changed. While the dollar will remain the world's reserve currency, it's definitely going to be less influential and less powerful. Where the BRICS movement does have some real potential is if it serves more as a settlement between countries so that it can avoid situations like with Russia, where you're stuck with billions of rupees and you can't do anything with them. The BRICS alliance could also serve as a viable replacement to the SWIFT payment system, which would accelerate the de-dollarization movement that we are seeing. But that is also riddled with issues. Are India and Russia going to transport billions of rupees and gold back and forth as a way to settle the trade? Think about the cost and the risk associated with that. Do you think India or any of these other countries are going to trust Russia or China to hold their gold for them? Regardless, I don't see a scenario where there will be a common currency used by all the BRICS nations like the euro. With all due respect to Robert Kiyosaki and others, I just don't see the creation of a BRICS currency where 1 brick equals 1 ounce of gold, and that brick currency is being used in Argentina and India and Iran for day-to-day transactions. At best, the BRICS becomes a way for countries to settle trade and not have to use the dollar. And that is a risk to the US and to the US dollar. Ultimately, as stackers, what does this mean for the price of gold? Frankly, I'm not even sure we actually know what this means. I can make logical arguments for lifting the price of gold because the country's using gold to transact with one another. I could also see scenarios where it could drive the price down if a country like Russia develops a surplus of gold and has to sell that gold for liquidity purposes to convert it into another currency. In my personal opinion, again, just my opinion, the BRICS movement is about these historically disenfranchised countries finally having enough of sitting at the kids' table and demanding a seat with the rest of the adults. It's about not being treated like second-class countries and having an equal voice in global affairs. The beauty of gold is that it doesn't change and it provides us with protection during turbulent times which we are in. Gold is going to continue to do what gold has done simply because countries, governments, politicians will continue to do what they've always done. Debase and counterfeit currency, run deficits, overspend, create inflation, fight wars, all of which are good for the price of gold, which means all we need to do is to continue practicing good financial habits and stack more gold and silver, because ultimately gold and silver don't care about your wants or desires. It does what it's always done, regardless of the speculation, hype, or hysteria propagated by others. So the real impact on you should be keep buying gold and silver just like you've always done, because gold's going to do, silver's going to do what they've always done. In the comments section, do you think there will ever be a BRICS currency used in day-to-day transactions by regular people? Do you think the BRICS movement will impact the price of gold? And if so, which way? Or simply put an A+ in the comments so everyone knows that you always stack smarter and never stop learning.